Hello, friends. Hi, my name is Emily, and first of all, I have to say, don't get me wrong, our Nerd Night regulars, I'm really happy to see you. But we have so many new faces tonight, and I gotta know what made y'all come. So, as you leave, if you let me know or any of our other staff members, because we are so curious in the best way to see so many new faces here tonight. So, now the part that I plan to talk about. Welcome to Nerd Night. Tonight we are going to learn about perfect pathogens, losing the light, and telescope tails. I want to say thank you to all of you for coming. Again, I was this morning like, oh man, it looks beautiful tonight. Who's going to come to Nerd Night? And the answer is a room full of people. So thank you so much for being here. Thanks to the library. I sure appreciate that I get to do this as part of my job. And the library is the reason that there's no cover. So that's a great thing. And also really huge thanks to Live, because how neat is it that we have this nightclub that'll open early for us once a month so that we can come in and do talks. They even store these chairs for us upstairs in a cupboard so that we don't have to bring chairs over down from Fifth. They are such wonderful partners. So definitely, if you feel like getting a drink, that's a great way to support our venue and to support our wonderful bartender as well. Of course, we wouldn't have Nerd Night if we didn't have an audience, like I was worrying this morning, and here we are. So thank you, audience. Thank you for coming. But we also wouldn't have a Nerd Night if it wasn't for our speakers. So we have Lee Lucia, who is going to talk to us about rabies and how it's the perfect virus. Eric Fitzpatrick, who's going to talk about light pollution and what we can do to stop it. And then our hero, my coworker and pinch hitter, Steve Cheng, who's going to talk about telescope tails and is doing this with 4 days notice, maybe 3 days notice, because our planned speaker had an unexpected thing happen. Stay tuned. He'll come back later. So if you're like, Drat, I really wanted to know about x-raying black holes, don't worry. You just have to come to more Nerd Nights. But Steve is still with us with a great space-themed talk. But before all of that, it's time for your Nerd Night Minute. And my Nerd Night Minute for y'all tonight is about how to get better at crossword puzzles. And how do you do it? You do them. End of Nerd Night Midnight. I am going to tell you a little more, but essentially it really does boil down to do the puzzles, because there's no better way to practice the sideways thinking that crossword puzzles requires, or learn the crosswordese, the kinds of words that show up more frequently in a crossword than they do in English language generally, than doing the puzzles. Start easy. If you are not a crossword person and want to become one, don't jump in on a Saturday puzzle. Start with Mondays. New York Time Mondays are a little treat. They help teach you how they work, and they aren't too hard. You can do it. If that's not for you, what if you like pop culture? Do the people crossword. Same deal. They want you to succeed. My parents just started doing crosswords, which I love, because I love it when my passions get shared by the folks in my life. And they say the ones that they do after they feel demoralized by the ones that I write that they say are too hard, they turn to their daily commuter, and they can always finish that one in pen, though they do pull out whiteout. Another way to get better is you start to learn how to parse the clues. The question mark clues, the kind I used to hate, when they give you a clue and then they tack on a question mark on the end. And what that means is it involves some kind of sideways thinking, sometimes puns, sometimes later in the week, if you're talking about the New York Times crossword where it gets harder through the week, sometimes they leave that question mark out, even if it is a question mark style clue. But early in the week, that's your indicator. One of the things to pay attention to those are heteronyms, so words that are spelled the same but have different meanings. Like one crossword that I was doing this morning gave the clue, Veruca Salt, ironically. And the answer was spoiled brat. But if you think about it, brat and brat, B-R-A-T, like bratwurst, spoiled, it's unlikely that it would be spoiled because they're salted and it, so it's essentially the thing where you're like, oh, I get it. Or sometimes you don't get it, and that's okay too. And if you are willing to admit it, you can talk to your crossword friend and be like, hey, 24 across, can you explain that one to me? Because it didn't hit, and that's okay. Another thing to do is pay attention to cluings that use the words beginning of, middle of, end, or their any of their synonyms. So, for example, middle of bellies, why that is probably L's. Because the middle of the word bellies is two L's, and L's spelled out as a letter is L's. End of time, it's silent E. Start to cry, C. These ones used to make me so mad. But now I'm like, I'm onto you, and you can be onto them too. Anytime you see a clue that's indicating something that could be a place in time. And then, like I mentioned, learn the crossword E's, the words that are most likely to show up in puzzles because of their vowel consonant patterns, things like that. A 3-letter snake? Oh, you can bet that that's an asp. What about a 3-letter fish? It's eel. A 4-letter cookie? You know it's Oreo. A 4-letter Italian mountain, it's Etna. Or a baseball family, it's a Lou, A-L-O-U. An activist tennis player, it's Ashe. You start to learn these things. And then eventually, if you're like me, you're like, I should probably look up who Arthur Ashe is. And then I look up who he is, and I learn something new. And that's why crosswords are great. Speaking of, I'm jumping ahead. I'm going to jump ahead. Allow yourself to look things up because sometimes you aren't going to know something. You could just Google the clue and find the answer. But what I suggest is going to Wikipedia and looking up the topic that it's about and reading a couple paragraphs. A lot of times that will give you the answer because they're asking about more common things. You learn something new, and at least to my brain, then I don't feel like I'm cheating, even though there are no rules and you're doing this for fun, and so who cares if you cheat? Somehow I do care. When you're first starting, solve in pencil or an erasable pen, which if you haven't tried one in decades like I hadn't, they actually work now, y'all. So go ahead and do that. Put in, if you think it could be this, actually write it in because it is easier to see where things, where you are going wrong or sideways, or figure out and fill in the blanks when you actually see the letters in there. Gradually increase your difficulty. So after you do those Monday puzzles for a while and you're like, I got this, throw in a Tuesday and eventually build yourself up. But still do those easy puzzles. Those help keep the puzzle solving muscles loose. It helps remind you of those crossword E's. And you need a win. So if you're doing something that's really hard and stretching yourself, remind yourself that you can do this and do easier ones. I would say, as you're increasing the difficulty, if you are doing New York Times, at first you might want to skip Thursdays. Thursdays are the weird ones. They break the rules. They sometimes have rebuses. I've already talked more than a minute, so I'm not going to dive into those right now. But I'll just tell you, I used to hate them. Now I love them because that's the way that crosswords warp your brain. And then find the puzzle that suits your style. Because again, it's unlikely that you're doing these for your job. So find a way, if you want to do them, that is fun for you. Personally, I think the New York Times has the best digital interface. It's the one that I think is the most clearly leveled, so a Monday puzzle tends to be about the same difficulty as a Monday puzzle in another week. It is free if you're playing that day's puzzle online, or you can subscribe. Nice thing about subscribing is it does give you that difficult or wonderful streak. I'm a total sucker for a streak. We will forgive my son for being born, I suppose, so I didn't make it to 1,000, but here I am, I'm building my way back up. Vulture has a really fun daily 10 by 10, so a little bit of a smaller puzzle. It is more pop culture focused, and the 10 by 10 is just a different feel. So it's a little bit of a bite of a puzzle. I often learn about like pop culture things I wouldn't otherwise know about because I'm a real nerd and don't always dip into that from the Vulture puzzle. But my new to me favorite is AVCX. It is one that you do have to subscribe to, but it's an indie puzzle. I like that the puzzle makers, like my money subscribing goes directly to them, but they do let you try it out for free for a month. One of the reasons I like them is they allow the constructor's voice to really come through. They tend to be sillier, and they tend to like not worry so much about like pushing the envelope. But find the one that looks for you. There's a website called Daily Crossword Links, and they post like so many more than you would have time to do in a day unless your only job was to do crosswords. So you can dip in, dip out, find the one that suits your needs, whatever your needs may be. Again, Clearly, I love crosswords. I'm talking for more than a minute. And if none of those suit your fancy, but you're a summer game player, guess what? Our crosswords are coming back this year, which is very exciting because it means that I continue to warp my job into doing things I want to do that I never thought a librarian could do. And I'm learning how to write crossword puzzles. So if you want to do some crossword puzzles by yours truly, play the summer game. You'll hear from me about that later. But now, more than enough from me, it is time for us to welcome Lee. Lee is an aspiring science writer and current master's student at the U of M studying microbiology and immunology. Apart from a special interest in infectious diseases, they are obsessed with baseball and love the Detroit Tigers. Please join me in welcoming Lee.
All right. All right. Hearing are me all right? All right. Perfect. I do love the Detroit Tigers, but they don't love me back. If you look at their record in the past week. Yep. I'm a master's student, graduating in 22 days. Not like I'm counting or anything. And today I'm going to be talking about rabies and why it is the perfect virus, because I think rabies is very cool, actually. And what's like the first thing you think of when you hear the word rabies? Mad dog, bats, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much what we think of when we think of rabies, but that's only like part of the story. And I'm going to be getting kind of into that a little bit later. So has anyone ever played the game Plague Inc.? Anyone here? Yes, I used to play that all the time in like middle school because I was that kind of nerd. I love that game. It's basically where you play as a disease and you're trying to kill everyone on Earth. It's great. So one of the things I really like thinking about is why do diseases do the things that they do? And they got a few different strategies I'm going to be kind of going into. So the goal is always, always, always going to be to spread to more hosts. It's going to do that in a few different ways. Talk about hide and seek is going to want to stay hidden from the immune system. Like in Plague Inc., I always play the way where you try and infect everybody at once and then you hit the kill switch and kill everybody at the same time. It's very satisfying if it works out. It doesn't always work out because I'm not very good at that game. You got to have a mechanism of infection. You got to have a way to spread from person to person. And the kill rate. This kill rate is kind of interesting. Diseases don't actually want to kill you. Rabies is kind of an exception, kind of. So one thing I'm going to be talking a lot about is pathophysiology. The technical definition is the study of functional and structural changes in body resulting from disease or injury. Basically, how a particular disease fucks you up. That's what pathophysiology is. And like I was saying about kill rate earlier, most diseases don't want you to die. Anthrax is kind of an exception. Rabies kills you by accident. But most diseases don't really, like, talk about Spanish flu, right? A C right there. 2.5% of people who got infected with Spanish flu died, and it's one of the most deadly pandemics in human history, but it doesn't kill that many people. Then you get stuff like Ebola or bird flu that's like way on the high side, but those are very unusual. So what exactly is rabies? So it's a viral disease. I feel like 7 years ago, I would have had to stand here and be like, oh, so this is what a virus is. But I feel like we all kind of know what a virus is at this point, unfortunately. It's what's known as a Lyssavirus, which is a family of viruses in, and Lyssa actually comes from the Greek goddess of like madness and hysteria, and the word rabies comes from the Latin word that just meant madness. So it's a very old disease because we got Latin and Greek words that basically just mean the definition of the word. And this is what it looks like. This is really cool. It's very unique, kind of like bullet shape is always how it's described as. I'm going to say what nobody else has been brave enough to say before me. It also looks like a tampon. So, yeah, but it is a very cool, unique shape because lots of other viruses are just either circular or there's kind of like a stringy line. And basically 100% fatality rate. There's been like a few cases under like the Milwaukee Protocol, if you've ever heard of that. But those are extreme exceptions. So it's basically 100% fatality rate. But if you get the vaccine, 100% going to be okay. Transmitted through saliva and through bites is where you get most of the time is going to be bites, but it can also be like if an infected animal licks a wound or something. But the key is saliva. And the vast, vast majority of cases nowadays are caused by dogs, but it's also going to be bats a lot of time. But dogs are just kind of like, they're a bigger animal. They're more common that you're going to come across them, so that's why they cause more of the cases. And it's an also very old disease. Like, we have old records of this. 4,000 years ago, for Hammurabi's Code, if you ever heard of that, there was, if a dog became rabid and you were aware of it, and it was your dog, and then it went and bit and killed some guy, you had to pay 40 shekels, or if that guy was a slave, only 15. And yeah, not very fair. But in case you're wondering how much that is in American, that's about 96 Big Macs. Or $560, which, okay, that's like little more than half the rent I'm paying for my shitty apartment. That feels way undervalued. Or maybe I'm just paying too much for rent. Both could be true. So currently, rabies is still pretty much everywhere, except I don't know what Europe did exactly, but like islands make sense. It's very easy to vaccinate most of the area. Australia and like the UK, there's still like some bat rabies going around, and that can infect humans, but it's really not well understood. But New Zealand, only place that has no rabies and hobbits. So good for them. And most cases currently are going to be taking place in India or South or China, and that's really because that's where we get recordings of records. Like, there's a lot of rabies probably floating around in continental Africa, but we just don't have the numbers on that. But India has like a huge problem with like feral dogs, so that's where you get a lot more of the cases. And like 75% of the cases are children, which is like really depressing. Yeah, but we also have no idea how many cases there actually are, just because it is really hard to report it. So, a little bit more on the lighthearted side, ancient diseases come with ancient cures. Like hair of the dog, literal, comes from rabies. Take hair of a dog, eat it, cured of rabies. But here's another method, how to treat rabies 100%. First step, you get bitten by a rabid dog. This part, non-negotiable. Step 2, you're going to take an herb and you're going to take some wheat and you're going to soak it on the wound where the dog bit you. It doesn't say exactly what you soak it in. I'm assuming like blood or something. I don't know. You feed that wheat to a chicken. The chicken then eats it, and then you profit by not having rabies anymore. This 100% works. Don't fact check me. Chicken plus wheat equals congratulations. No more rabies. I don't think the success rate on this was particularly high. But there was a lot of these ancient kinds of cures that were floating around for that. And so now I'm going to get a little more into the nitty-gritty details of exactly how rabies progresses. I like every single picture that I find where it's like, oh, here's how it progresses through like the human body. There's always a little picture of a dog biting someone. I don't know why they always feel the need to include this, but I find it very funny. And that dog did no crime. No, he did nothing wrong. Support his rights. Free him. So basically, rabies, you'll get infected via a bite, and then the virus will be in the saliva, and it'll just sit in the muscle tissue. Now, you have what's known as nicotine acetylcholine receptors, and acetylcholine receptors are in the muscle cells, and that's basically what receives signals from the neurons from the brain in order to be like, hey, I want you to do things, and it's like, all right, let's go. So basically, rabies sees this and completely takes advantage of it and jumps from the muscle cells into the neurons this way. So it's actually really cool. Not a lot of diseases will do this, really go into neuron cells. So it'll sit in the muscle tissue, and then it'll jump into neuron cells, and it'll just jump from cell to cell to cell until it gets from the peripheral nervous system, which is like the outs in your limbs and stuff, and it'll get into the central nervous system, which is your spinal cord and your brain. And it wants to do this because the immune system does not like attacking its own neurons, because that's kind of a really big deal. And this is how it completely bypasses the blood-brain barrier, which is what normally protects the brain against diseases and toxins and stuff, but rabies saw that, was like, fuck that. We're just going to go in through the central nervous system. And the rate is, look, it's not quite well understood, because Here's the fun thing. It's really hard to do ethical studies with rabies for some reason. I can't imagine why. But so we don't really have a great understanding of a lot of the underlying mechanisms of how, so that's why you'll see rates of like, oh, it'll do 0.1 milliliters per day, or it'll be like, oh, it'll be 10 milliliters a day, which are vastly different. And I'm not quite sure how they got those two different, okay, I'm going on the sidetrack. Not the point. But it climbs up through the central nervous system until it gets to the brain. That's where all the fun stuff happens. Once it gets to the brain, the virus will go to your eyes, to the salivary glands, to the nerves around your throat and your tongue, and then also go to all the other like organs, like your liver, your kidneys. That's how we get cases like, oh, someone got a kidney transplant, and then he got rabies. Yeah, don't look that up. It's really terrifying. But yeah, fun stuff. But yeah, it'll go in your corneas, it'll go into all those types of cells. Well, basically, that's just the overview. I'm rambling. So here are some cool pathophysiology fun facts. So there are actually two forms of rabies. There's paralytic and there's furious. And furious is what we all think of when we think of rabies, where it's like aggressive, the biting, the et cetera, et cetera. And that makes sense because there's like 2/3 of all cases are going to be furious rabies. It's not really understood what causes there to be two different versions. Like there's a case of like a rabid dog bit two different people, and those two different people had two different forms of the disease. So it's not like different strains or something, but there are two different forms. And paralytic is basically just like paralytic. Is opposite of furious, where you're just like more lethargic, muscles don't really move all that well, and then you go into a coma and die. So there is a difference between dog and bat strains. I find this super cool. So dog bites are going to be way deeper than bat bites, right? Because bats are tiny. And bat bites, like rabies strains in bats, grow really well in the epithelial cells, so the cells on your skin and stuff. Whereas the dog strains, they don't really grow that well on those in those cells. So that's really interesting because the bat strains clearly evolved differently from the dog strains. Let's see, like I said earlier, the immune response is extremely limited. We really don't have a great understanding of exactly what the immune system is doing, but it's doing something, and it's not very helpful, so they need to get on that. And death is a side effect. It does not there's no functional evolutionary reason for rabies to want to kill you, because it really is a side effect. It's just overloading your brain. You're just getting encephalitis. All your organs are shutting down at once, and then you die. And the fact that we have zero immunity built up to this is really interesting, because it's been around for a really long time, but we have no way to defend it against it at all. Yeah, let's talk about the clinical stages a little bit. Kind of already discussed this, but incubation, this is just when it's sitting and it's slowly growing into your peripheral nerves and to the central nervous system. This is the only place where if you get vaccinated, you are not fucked. So, yeah. The incubation period can be really long. Like there's cases of like 4 years later. There is some like doubt in that because it's really hard to be like, this is the case of rabies. We can immediately identify when they were bitten by so it's kind of questionable, but it also makes sense just because the incubation period varies based on like where you get bitten. Like if you get bitten on the face a whole bunch, the nerves are a lot closer to the brain versus like if you're getting bitten on your foot, the virus has to travel up through those nerves a lot more, so it's going to take a lot longer. Then after this is all you're gonna die at this point. So prodrome period is like very generic symptoms. The phrase always used is flu-like symptoms. And this is basically you have a headache, you're tired, maybe your stomach hurts, all that kind of stuff. That's what prodrome period. But point is for prodrome period, no one is going to look at that and be like, rabies. It's just very generic, kind of like you're sick. Then we get the acute neurological signs, which is where it really jumps from like a 10 to like a 1500 at this point, because this is where you get your foaming at the mouth, the aggressiveness, the hydrophobia, all that kind of stuff all happens at once, and it lasts like about like 7 to 10 days, maybe a couple weeks. And then the next phase is just coma, which is really encouraging. Basically, just your brain is all inflamed. It can't do anything. All your organs are shutting down, and you just fall into a coma. And then this is the best part: stage 5, death. That's the stage 5. When you have a disease where the stage is just death, that's really not encouraging. But we do have a vaccine for it. I don't want to be told doom and gloom here. The vaccine, extremely effective. It just really sucks to get, from what I've heard, because you have to get like 15 shots and like a whole bunch of immunoglobulins and all that kind of stuff. Because like if it doesn't take, yeah, it's kind of a really bad idea. So they ought to be really careful on the side of caution for that. So where did this disease come from? It came from this guy. It's actually evil. But no, I'm not even kidding. When we talk about viruses, most of the time it's gonna be bats. A lot of the time, bats' immune systems are really funky in that they like store viruses for a lot longer, and so they can spread disease a lot easier. I mean, they're not evil, but like they do cause us a lot of problems, like Ebola, Nipah, COVID, all that type of stuff. So bats are not really fun. I just wanted to include this because I found it interesting. It was like, oh, well, we know it's probably bats because there's like some strains where like it doesn't cause blah, blah, blah. I just found it funny. There's like death on here 8 times. I don't know why they needed to include this 8 times. I think we got the point after like 3. So, like, look at those dogs there. It says death, death, death. We get the point. All right, and I'm just going to go through this quick because I've taken up a lot of time. But the point is, this is why rabies is the perfect virus, because everything goes towards its final goal. Its final goal is for more rabies. So every symptom that it causes leads towards increased transmission. So salivary glands become more active. It spreads through saliva, so therefore it causes more saliva to be formed in your mouth. It causes aggressive behavior. It spreads through saliva in bite wounds. It causes aggressive behavior. We don't actually know what causes the aggressive behavior. It's just like in your brain, and it's probably some like frontal lobes or something, but it causes you to be more aggressive. You're more aggressive, you bite more, animals are gonna be biting. I was gonna say you bite more people, but like, that doesn't really happen in people, but like hypothetically. The dog bites more people. How about that? We go with that. So it's going to be aggressive. That's how it spreads more rabies. You're going to get throat spasms. This causes you to not swallow, and then all the saliva is going to be staying in your mouth, aka all the rabies virus particles are going to be staying in your mouth, so you're more likely to actually spread it. I keep saying you. There's no, people don't, okay. You get the point. Then we get pain in the tongue and throat. This is the same idea. When your throat really hurts, you don't want to actually swallow because it just sucks. And so that means all the saliva is going to be staying in your mouth again. Same idea. And then the hydrophobia. This is the famous one. Hydrophobia might be slightly exaggerated, but really not. Like, there's videos on YouTube. Don't watch them. It's kind of disturbing. But you can hand a person who has rabies or like an animal like a glass of water and they will freak out. They will want water, but they won't act. As soon as they see it, they'll be like, it's just kind of like some kind of instinct to be like, no, bad, bad, bad. So, but that makes sense when you think about it. When you drink water, saliva also goes down your throat. The rabies wants the virus to stay in your mouth. So therefore, don't drink water. Therefore, you have also that's how you get the foaming at the mouth. So that is why rabies is the perfect virus. So everything leads towards its final goal. Anyway, thanks for listening. Okay. All right. Oh, wait. Okay. Okay. Okay, we're doing the person in the back first. Oh yeah, so the Milwaukee Protocol is named after, in like 2009 or 2010, there was like a teenager who got rabies. She was basically put into a medically induced coma and very, very, very carefully brought out of it until she was able to come back. And when she was woke from her coma, she had to relearn how to talk. She had to relearn how to walk. This was not like a one-shot cure. And they've tried to replicate it. It's been replicated a couple of times, but most of the time it does not work. So I can't give an answer on why it worked this one time, because they've tried to do it a bunch of other times. It might have just been luck. It might have just been like she had some sort of better immune system. But it's really, yeah. And it was a miracle at the time because it was the first time it had ever been done. All right, I want. All right.
Okay, so based on how it goes through the body, has there ever been a point in time in history where it was treated by like amputation?
Oh, so being treated by amputation because it spreads to the nerves. Yes, I'm so glad you asked. I forgot to mention this. There have been documented cases, especially like in like pre-vaccine and stuff, where people get bit by a rabid animal in like the hand or the foot, they amputate that limb, and that person does not get rabies. So yeah, that does work.
Thank you so much, Lee. We'll see you back here in 9 minutes. That's 7:40. Go refresh your drink, say hi to your neighbor, and we'll see you soon.
Alrighty, folks. Let's make our way back from the restroom, from the bar, because we are about to hear from our next presenter. My name is Jacob. I'm so excited to be here with you this evening and to be helping out with hosting Nerd Nite. How about we give a round of applause for Nerd Nite in general? I love applause. On this wonderful warm evening, we didn't know what to expect. We didn't know how many people would come. So this turnout, we're over the moon. So thank you guys for coming out. I have the honor of introducing our second speaker this evening. Oh, let me change the... Oh, uh-oh. All right, let's please welcome Eric Fitzpatrick. Oh, I said it wrong. Now, let's clap again. Yeah, there we go. Oh, geez, I'm a mess. Eric has been involved in light pollution study for decades. His master's thesis was on outdoor lighting efficiency. He is the founder of the City of Livonia's outdoor lighting policy, and he was the 23rd lifetime member of the International Dark Sky Association. Let's welcome Eric to the stage. I got this right here for you, and I got a microphone for you. I'm gonna squeeze past it.
Hi, everybody. How you doing? Good. I was thinking about it, agonizing over preparing for this. Kind of nervous, but I just want to state my goal. And my goal is to plant some seeds on how to combat light pollution. I've been doing this for almost a half a decade, and I've seen what works, and I've seen what doesn't work. So hopefully we're going to communicate some things, and again, hopefully get the big takeaway that how we can do this. And this is one of the reasons I'm calling it a different view, because again, my goal is to show how to deal with this and mitigate it. A lot of talk about it, but unfortunately not a lot of action, as we'll see. Okay, so, wouldn't that be great? Okay, so as stated before, I did my master's thesis on outdoor lighting, and a lot of this involved with light pollution. I'm the 23rd lifetime member of the International Dark Sky Association, now called Dark Sky International. And I think there's something like 190,000 members. I don't know, a lot of controversy, but there's several thousand. I'm number 23, and I've come from this from a grassroots perspective, and there has been a lot of changes. Okay, so I went before the city of Livonia 25 years ago, and I did my spiel, got a lot of attention, got on the front page of the Livonia Observer, on to the right there, front page of the Detroit News Wayne County section, and thank you, long time ago, yeah. Had my mustache back then. But the bottom line is I want to start out with this right here. I think it's a really good example of good lighting versus bad lighting. As you can see, you got these lights just shining in your face, causing all kinds of glare, problems with the lens. It was a rainy night when they took my picture. And then you got this building in the middle. Notice the building in the middle, it's not shining in your face. It's not causing glare. You don't have this going on. This is not really good when you're trying to drive a car. This is not really good when you start getting cataracts a little later in life, such as myself. They say I'm at 25%. I'm like, oh my gosh, what's going to happen when I'm at 75%, when I need to get, to the point where I need surgery? But this doesn't cause problems with that. But as you can see, this area is really well lit up. This is blinding you in the face. You can't even see what the hell is going on here. I mean, you can, if there's people walking around here, you can see that. Here, you're not going to see nothing. You can clearly see it. Not to mention, it's bouncing off the street. Well, imagine you're driving into this, and there's a pedestrian, maybe wearing darker clothes or whatever. Which are you going to see better? Under this sort of lighting or this sort of lighting? So there's safety concerns too. Not only nuisance, safety concerns, that sort of thing. Okay. So currently I'm working with the city of Livonia to ratify the policy that I started 25 years ago, because unfortunately the problem has gotten a lot worse. And part of the reasons, we're going to talk about this in a minute, is because the technology changes. You know, as you know, we got a lot of LEDs. Hey, you know, LEDs are great. Yeah, this is really pretty here and stuff like that. You got the LEDs going. Sometimes you got the LEDs back there. But unfortunately, you have other issues with that too, which we'll get to. This is just kind of a bullet list of the things we're going to be going through. And whatever, we're going to be talking about what's so bad about this. So here we got some examples. And these canopy lights are great. You know, these are shining down, lighting up everything. But for some reason, these people got to put these damn frickin' floodlights on the canopy. And again, this is shining in your face, causing safety issues. It's causing glare and discomfort to the eye, and it does not aid anything as far as helping you to see. It's just shining in your face. It's like this is shining in my face right now. I'd rather be over here. Hey, I can see everybody. Wow, there's about, oh my gosh, this is really freaking me out because I'm seeing like 100 people. I'm going to stand back over. Oh, this is much better. I can't see you guys. It's like I'm talking to myself. But if you guys were pedestrians and I'm driving a flatbed semi, yeah, this is not a good situation, not being able to see. Well, unfortunately, this is the kind of thing that this is what's going on. Now, since I'm not speaking at the city of Livonia right now, this right here, this sort of thing not only causes safety, you know, other things, it causes light trespass. And frankly, on top of that, this is a senior citizen's home with this sort of thing shining in here. Even if you put the best curtains, it's still going to get through the window, and you're going to be able to read from it, a newspaper, unless you just basically take the windows out and break them out. But this is cool because when I go before city council, I can't say what I'm about to say right now. This is bullshit. And yeah. And some of you people know what I'm talking about because I've gone to these city council, you know, this is round 2, and I found every time I've gone there and it's been announced, I have other people come up to the podium organically. I have no idea who these people are, and they're bitching about it. Well, not as bad as me, but they're bitching about it because this is so unacceptable because this is, it's just gotten a lot worse over the last quarter century. And so this is what I'm here to try to help mitigate this thing. Now, how many people here have either been involved with or have knowledge of marijuana cultivation? Anybody? Anybody? You bunch of liars. Come on, man. This is Ann Arbor at ground zero for this whole thing? Yeah, right. Okay, well, anyhow. Bottom line is anybody who knows about growing pot plants, yeah, probably 95% of you, knows that if you disrupt the cycles of the lighting, you're going to ruin the plant, okay? Now, the plant's still going to be alive, and, you know, your common, you know, person's going to say, okay, yeah, it's still, what's the big deal? No big deal. You know, it still has the leaves and stuff like that, but it'll ruin your bud. It'll mess up the cycles of this thing because you messed up the light, okay? It'll basically destroy your crop if you don't do the lighting right. Now, you can't tell me, and I wish I had the slides to prove it, but I couldn't find it. You can't tell me that this irregular lighting, such as lights being blasting all night, that sort of thing, them getting brighter because the newer LED technology is not affecting other plants. And it also affects humans, insects, a bunch of stuff that we're not going to get into. But the bottom line is it messes with the plants. Just like, you know, there's, I don't know, what, 170 people in here, something like that, 70 people, I don't know. Bottom line is everybody seems to look fine, but there's probably some people here who have some sort of chronic illness, some sort of cold or whatever it is, but you wouldn't know it just by looking at them. Just like you wouldn't know that there's a problem with the plants. You know, the whatever, the 24/7 light. They become compromised. And they did have a picture where I showed a tree where the bottom of the tree was dead. The sheer cutoff where the light was, above where the light was, it was alive. And I wish I had that picture, but the bottom line is, Ann Arbor, Livonia, big tree places, lights 24/7 are not good for trees and a bunch of other stuff. This is an abomination. This is the dreaded LED floodlight. And just like those gas station pictures, these things are popping up all over the place like a bad disease. It's spreading like a cancer. And, we're just basically, I'm trying to, do something to mitigate this. This is what I'm talking to the city of Livonia about the dreaded LED floodlight. Bottom line is you get more brightness per watt. And because of that, people say, hey, we can save some money. No. We're going to use the same amount of electricity and make it brighter and more obnoxious. Now, I tried to tweak this picture. This is from Chino Valley, Arizona, okay? Arizona, especially this area, the Quad City area, they have really great lighting ordinances. They don't put up with this crap. I mean, you see some of this, some of this nonsense, but the bottom line is you don't have it like the rest of the country, basically. And this is kind of what you see when you go out. And one thing that I found is the darkness. You don't even have to look into the sky. All this is something cool to see every night. For peace and serenity, especially these days in such a crazy world, it's just kind of cool to experience the dark once you get past the fear. I'm talking about looking at the dark, no lights. You see the green in your eyes starting to develop because your night vision is adapting to it. And there's just this peace and serenity about it that a lot of it's been taken away. Because of all these damn lights. Anyhow, so what can be done? And this is the biggest thing. This would be the biggest takeaway from this whole thing. Awareness is the key, okay? And especially, primarily, those who can make a difference, okay? HOA, board members, business owners, other government officials such as city councils, that sort of thing. These are the people who can make a difference. These are the people who you want to make aware. Okay? And in my almost half a century experience with this, there's been different tactics and that sort of thing as far as addressing it. But I found by the furthest is awareness and making the people who can make the difference aware. And if anybody would like to, look into this further, would like to tackle some sort of thing, there's my email address. Shoot me an email. I would be more than happy to discuss, with you some possible, tactics as far as addressing light pollution problems that you'd like to see addressed. Okay. Seriously. You guys are laughing. I'm serious. No, serious. I have found when I take people out, my friends, they've heard this for decades, especially back when I was younger, when I first did round one with this whole thing, with the city of Livonia. Once you make them aware, once you show them some of these obnoxious examples like those gas station canopies, oh, wow, this sucks. But then you show them good examples, wow, this is great. My retinas aren't being fried out by these damn lights. But yet I can see. I'm not, spilling light on other people's property. Yeah, that's a problem. Oh, my gosh, I'm driving. I never noticed that before. But, yeah, that's a problem. And literally what I found about 80% of the time, it's literally like pulling somebody out of the Matrix. Wow, I never thought about that. Do you understand me, Neo? So, yes, again, awareness is the key. Okay, I got a couple of minutes, but I definitely want to take some questions. But let's go back to this, as I do have a little bit of time. So, a quarter century later, I'm back pestering the city of Livonia, and it's moving along pretty well. I'm looking to ratify the current policy because, again, it doesn't address these LED lights. It doesn't address excessive brightness because, again, you get more brightness per watt, a lot more abuse. So I'm trying to, get them to address these issues and make it move forward. But the bottom line is that I think I'm either on round 4 or round 5 or something like that. But going before the Livonia City Council, number one, every time the meeting's been announced, there's been people coming up to the podium organically. I have no idea who these people are, saying, yeah, well, this, business went in over there. I got a neighbor here, or so on and so forth. It seems like compared to a quarter century ago, I got the attention from the media. This round, it's like people stepping up and say, hey, yeah, I understand what you're saying. We really need to do something about this. Yeah, I'm such and such for such and such address. I got this business that went in, blah, blah, blah. I hear this a lot. Another good thing about this is that up to this point, I think there's been about 3 voting sessions, and this is very encouraging. Every vote to move forward has been a unanimous yes, which is very encouraging. And I'll tell you what, this policy from 25 years ago, although I would like to have it in ordinance, they do seem to enforce the policy. And one thing I've noticed about the city of Livonia, compared to the other cities, especially to the south and especially to the east, there is a stark difference compared to some of the obnoxious examples we've seen and good stuff. Livonia does have its problems, there's no doubt about that, but compared to the surrounding communities, they've done a really good job with their outdoor lighting. I would like to see it better, number one. Number two, I would like to see the surrounding communities to do better. And that would result in all the environmental issues and all that other stuff. And maybe one day we will see the night sky maybe 10 years ago. Going back 25, 30 years ago, I don't know. But again, that's the goal. And since, we got some time left over, I'd like to take some questions. Does anybody out there have a question? Okay, you right there. Okay, so the lady here says, she wants to see verifications to the claim that I'm making. This stuff is more than abundant. It's out there. Just Google it, International Dark Sky or Dark Sky International. They have a lot of information on this. This is nothing new on this under the sun. It is definitely out there. Just Google it, and you'll just come out with all kinds of stuff. Anyone? Oh, right, but I only have so much time. We could do this all night, but I only got 20 minutes. And I agree with you 100%. I just don't have the time. If you want to see me afterwards, I can, if you want, more information, I can set you in the right direction. Okay, anybody else? Okay, how about you? And I'm going to let you speak into the microphone. That way I don't have to repeat the question. Here you go.
Thank you. So I was wondering if you notice or there's data on seasonal effects of light pollution. So for instance, in the wintertime, maybe due to Christmas, or in the summertime, maybe due to construction lights or things like that. So I was wondering if there was a seasonal impact on light pollution.
Okay, I don't know about a seasonal impact, but one thing I do know about it, I'm sure everybody's heard about melatonin, right? For sleep and all that stuff. I found about melatonin back in the 90s, and the reason is because there was research out there that has not been disputed that if you have a light in your room and you don't have total darkness, the brain does not produce natural melatonin if there's any light. Therefore, you have a melatonin deficiency, and even you went as far as to say because you don't have the melatonin being generated, it could contribute to cancer. So, yeah, as far as that goes, yeah. Melatonin, the seasonal thing, I have not heard anything about that. One more question. Okay, I'm going to walk over here. So I can see you.
Yeah, I didn't know if you could talk about the blue light, like on cell phones, and also seasonal affective disorder.
Okay, my understanding is with this. I mean, I don't know much about it, but I do know a little bit. Well, okay, you heard the question, but the only thing I know about that is the phones do have something to reduce the blue light, so you aren't looking at it, because I guess when you have blue light, it prevents you from falling asleep as you normally would, and that's about all I can say. So, all right. Thank you.
Alrighty, now we have about another 10-minute break here. It is now 7:59. If we could have you back at 8:10 for our last presentation of the evening. Grab a drink, use the restroom, tip those bartenders, and we'll see you back in 10. And all, welcome back to your Nerd Night. Let me hear some more applause. Don't be shy. I am truly honored to introduce our next presenter, as he is my esteemed colleague. We work together at Ann Arbor District Library. Without further ado, when he's not working at Ann Arbor District Library, Steve teaches U.S. and world history in 7th and 8th grade. He's nerdy about a great many things, but he has been especially nerdy about space. In the space program for as long as he can remember, let's give a nice, big, warm welcome to Steve. It's coming.
Well, here we are. It's great to be back on this stage. I've been here a couple times, obviously, sometimes introducing things. And tonight I'm going to talk about telescope tales, the odd, the obscure stories of America's mountaintop observatories. So, how nerdy am I? I'm this nerdy. Many, many. My favorite episode is the one where they talk about the lunar lander, in case you've seen that one. How many of you have seen From the Earth to the Moon? Thank you. I appreciate the applause on that one. Favorite Apollo astronaut? That would be Al Bean. He's a goofball. And some of you actually know who he is. Favorite shuttle astronaut? Charles Bolden. He's the guy that commanded the mission to repair the Hubble Space Telescope. And also the first, I believe, African-American administrator of NASA. Good guy. Favorite Artemis astronaut? That would be Jasmine Moghbeli. She's Persian. She's a Marine helicopter pilot, and her call sign is Jaws, which is awesome. Anyways, Emily came and asked me to do this talk a couple days ago. I was like, yeah, I can talk about something. What should I talk about? And I thought, well, I just got back from that is nerd cred right there, Kitt Peak National Observatory outside Tucson, Arizona. And I thought, well, I just went to the night observing program with the watching on social media on our YouTube channel. Shout out to my partner, Molly. Love you. So we just got back from there. I can talk about telescopes. And I thought about that. And I said, well, really? How exciting is telescopes as a topic? I mean, you find a nice, quiet, clear place. You look up at the stars. And they move around the sky overnight very slowly. And then I started doing some digging. And some digging and some digging. And I was like, wow, there's some weird stuff that happens around America's telescopes. So hopefully this will be interesting to you, and if not, there's a bunch of pictures of the sky, which are pretty. So you get that too. And because you don't get to hear Professor Miller talking about black holes today, I did put in a picture of a black hole just for you. You're welcome. So this is my entry point into... How many of you have seen this book before? This was my entry point into science and space. It was old enough that it did not have the space shuttle in it. That's the one I grew up on. I just had to throw that in there. Yes, you can say, aw. Thank you. So, humans have been looking at the stars for a very long time. This is the Kokino Observatory in North Macedonia. It's been around since 2000 BC. For those of you keeping score, that's like pyramid time frames. We've been looking up at the stars. Slightly more recent, go back 1,000 years. This is El Caracol at Chichen Itza in the Yucatan in Mexico. And if you're anybody that looks at that and says, gee, I wonder what that is, you can immediately look at that and say, yup, that's an observatory. It's a dome. Apparently, we've been doing that since then and haven't looked back. On the far side, we've got the Vatican Observatory. Yes, after that misunderstanding with Galileo, they got into the space game and opened their own observatory at Castle Gandolfo. Also, local cred here. The current director is Brother Guy Consolmagno, S.J. He is from Detroit. He is a graduate of U of D Detroit. So there's that too. Anyways, here's some of the story about America's observatories. We got onto the map with the James Lick Observatory in 1888. That is near San Jose. Dear Lord, thinking about our previous presenter talking about light pollution, I have no idea how they see anything. Considering, think about San Jose and all the orchards as far as the eye can see when they built the place. What is it now? It's Silicon Valley. Anyways, we'll talk about almost all of the rest of these somewhere along the way, but McDonald Observatory in 1933, Palomar outside San Diego County, same basic problem there. It's a lot brighter. Mauna Kea, the largest observatory complex in the United States. Kitt Peak, which is where I just went. It's really nice. Highly recommend. You should go there. And the more recent Mount Graham, which is also close to Tucson. So that's a 2 for the price of 1. So, what do you need to do to build an observatory? By the way, admire the picture. Thank you. Shouldn't be too hard, right? 3 easy steps to building a mountaintop observatory. Strangely enough, step 1 is find a mountain. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a place that's reasonably tall, 6,000 to 8,000 feet. We like the thin atmosphere. We want something that's dry. In case you're wondering, yes, this looks a lot like Arizona. We want low rain. Clouds are bad. Desert climates are nice. They keep the telescopes at good temperatures. And, again, like our previous presenter, we like dark things. We want it to be dark, so we want to be away from light-polluting cities. That's important. Once we find suitable mountain at the 8,000-foot type of elevation, build road. This is the hard part. Having successfully built road up to 8,000-foot mountain where nobody actually is, find somebody to build you a giant lens, a mount, and you're on your way. That's pretty much it in 3 easy steps. And after that, start observing, right? This is the dark part of the talk, pun sort of intended. Because there's always politics. And what kind of politics are we talking about? Well, let's talk about one observatory in particular. That would be the MGIO, the Mount Graham International Observatory. Again, this is outside of Tucson. It's got a nice elevation of 10,000 feet. We've already done this. We'd already built Kitt Peak, right? Well, in 1984, we said, we want another place to put some more telescopes. And our starting point is the Vatican's Advanced Astronomy Telescope, the VAT, and the Submillimeter Radio Telescope, the SMT. Those are those 2 pretty pictures over there. And we also plan to put in this giant thing, the Large Binocular Telescope. That's 2 eyes for the price of 1 big eye. So 8.4 times 2 equals 11.8. Don't try to do the math. It does work out. However, almost immediately, the University of Arizona that sponsored the project ran into opposition from the local San Carlos band of Apache natives. Why? Well, as it turns out, high mountains are often special places for anybody. If you ask the Greeks, it's Mount Olympus. If you ask the Apache, it's this place. And also, this cute little guy. Thank you for the awe. Appreciate it. This is, I'm not going to try for the Latin name. This is the Mount Graham red squirrel. We think it disappeared in the 1950s. Then we rediscovered it in the 1970s, and it kind of bounced onto a bunch of endangered species lists, was described as critically imperiled, and listed on the endangered species list in 1987. Habitat, Mount Graham. That's why it's called the Mount Graham red squirrel. What is it like? Well, tree-covered mountains, high elevations. It eats the seeds, conifer cones, and dried fungi. What doesn't it like? Well, predators, but also construction vehicles that clear forests to put in big telescopes. Now, if you're a big research university that wants to put up a telescope, because let's face it, the University of Arizona is not known for its basketball team, but it is known for its telescopes. Yeah, I had to throw that in there. What are you going to do? Well, first of all, You're going to get slapped with a legal injunction against expanding the site over the already completed 8.6 acres. And you're going to run into objection from everybody that you can find. Environmentalists didn't like you. The Apache don't like you. The U.S. Forest Service doesn't like you. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service doesn't like you. And frankly, your own biology department doesn't like you because you're killing squirrels. But that's okay, because we're going to go and lobby our senators. And at this point in time, it's John McCain and Dennis DeConcini. If you're old enough to remember, this is the mid-1980s. What are these two senators also known for at this point in time? That's right, the Keating 5 savings and loan scandal. So they're not really averse to a little hand dirtying. So what did they do? They snuck a provision for Mount Graham site expansion into a bill under the Forest Service. And hello, omnibus bills. Nobody reads these things anyways. They're certainly not going to read another 5 lines of it. And it passed without a single hearing in 1988. So we've got approval for our site expansion. But what about the Apache that say this is our holy mountain? Oh, yeah. Well, we're going to try and get on their good side. We're going to hire a big consulting firm from San Francisco to tell us what to do. And they're going to say, you know what? You should give them money. But you can't make it seem like you're giving them money to get on your side. So we're going to do a little quid pro quo that we're going to respect the Apache people by boosting their education and cultural achievement. And they did that in 1993. But that's not all, folks. Because at the same time as we're doing this, we're also going to oppose them in a lawsuit for their religious freedom to exercise their beliefs on Mount Graham. And this is the dark side, pun not really intended at that point, about politics and astronomy colliding in a very, very ugly way. Where are we today? Well, we're still having problems. Well, the Large Binocular Telescope that was the starting point of some of those objections got moved to a nearby peak, so I guess that's a little bit better. But tensions are still continuing. And as you can see, in this case, this is a 2020 story that there's a group of Apache that have been making this traditional run to continually protest the development of the Mount Graham site. But if you think it's just Mount Graham, it's really not. Because Kit Peak has run into similar problems with the local Tohono O'odham tribe. We've had plenty of conflicts going back and forth with Mauna Kea and the native Hawaiian population over the management of the site at Mauna Kea with the University of Hawaii. And down in the Atacama Desert, considered to be the perfect place to have optical telescopes, there's been a lot of conflicts with local development, power projects, local people as well. So again, this is kind of the grim side of the story, and this is the downer part of my talk. Sorry about that. We'll start with the bad news. This isn't actually good news, but it's not quite as dark, and it is just kind of weird. So a man walks into an observatory. That observatory is the McDonald's Observatory, which is way out in the middle of nowhere in West Texas, which is, again, all those qualifications that we like. McDonald opened in 1933. By 1968, the giant Harlan J. Smith 107-inch telescope saw first light. But then, 2 years later, on February 6th, a recently hired instrument tech named Jack Hyde walked into the telescope building. He apparently was really angry with his supervisor, very depressed, and also very drunk. And armed. So he drew a pistol, pointed it at the telescope operators, forced them to lower it from its observation position, fired a single round at another worker he fortunately missed, and then unloaded 7 rounds into the telescope lens. He was very quickly subdued. And as it weirdly turns out, if you shoot a 4-ton piece of 107-inch glass, it doesn't really do much. Small calibers, I guess. The bullets were removed from the mirror, and they tried to patch the impact scars. And oddly enough, it worked. And they got from 107-inch relative resolution on their telescope to a 106-inch telescope. Want to see what it looks like? It looks like that. Yes, those are the bullet holes. So this is the first story and last story I could possibly find where somebody tried to assault a telescope. I was rather saddened that I could not figure out what happened to Mr. Hyde after he was arrested and charged with any number of different things. But enough about him. Let's go to the worst pirate you've never heard of. And incidentally, here's your duly noted black hole picture. So the worst pirate you've never heard of has to do with the Mauna Kea Observatory and the James Clerk Maxwell submillimeter wavelength radio telescope, whose construction began in 1983. This lovely piece of equipment that was instrumental in making the black hole picture that you just saw needed a piece of equipment to be made in England and then shipped to Hawaii. And so they did this, and they loaded this onto a cargo ship, but unfortunately the cargo ship broke down, and so the cargo shipping company said, fine, we're going to subcontract this to another freighter. So they tossed it onto this other freighter, lashed it to the deck, covered it with tarps, and away we go. Let's have a nice direct route over to Hawaii, right? Yeah, no. It was not a few moments later. Where did the ship go? Well, instead of taking the direct route to Hawaii, our intrepid captain went to Holland, loaded up a cargo of explosives, then got held up at the Panama Canal because apparently the Panama Canal Authority doesn't like it when you try and pack a bunch of explosives through without the right permitting. Dawdled around there until he got the paperwork in order, sailed through the Panama Canal, then disappeared into the Pacific Ocean. Why? Well, I guess he was offloading the explosives. The next record of him docking was in Ecuador. I don't know what they were doing with the explosives in Ecuador. I don't think anybody else does either. And finally appears 10 weeks later off the coast of Hawaii. You might understand that the astronomers are mildly concerned at this point. And so they decided they were going to bill him for the late fees because, I mean, if you're building on top of a mountain and trying to move something up there, things don't really turn around on a dime. The captain refused to pay. And they said, nope, you are going to pay me the full amount. And on top of that, he said, I will throw this in the ocean if you don't pay me in full. Again, concerned astronomers. So what did they do? Well, like everybody else, let's go to court. And we're going to get a writ for piracy against the captain of the freighter. Then we're going to take it down to the nearest harbor that has a Coast Guard station, give it to the Coast Guard, and the Coast Guard is going to go board the vessel, arrest the captain, and tow the ship into Hilo. The telescope was fortunately intact. It was installed, and the James Clerk Maxwell telescope saw first light in 1987. Now, if you think this might be a relatively unique occurrence that somebody is going to misappropriate a telescope, you would be wrong. Because in just a cursory search, in 1872, a lens from the Allegheny Observatory was stolen and held for ransom. The observatory refused to pay, but the lens was eventually discovered. It was extremely badly scratched. They polished it and repaired it and reinstalled it. In 2012, NASA had a telescope that they wanted to move from Minnesota to Texas, threw it in the back of a semi-truck specially designed to carry it, and sent it off on its way. They found the semi-truck with no trailer, the driver asleep in it somewhere in Texas, and eventually found the trailer that the driver had claimed had been stolen outside a car wash in Dallas. And more recently, the 15-inch Big Blue telescope stolen from the Carleton Observatory up in Evergreen State College was also stolen and recovered, but minus the lens. I have no idea if there's a secondary black market or dark web for observatory parts, but apparently here you go. To close us out here, looking at one final story. This one doesn't have to do with anybody doing crazy things or stealing things, but it does have to do something that you can think about on your way home. And this has to do with the Palomar Observatory out in California and the National Geographic-funded Palomar Observatory Sky Survey. This was photographing the northern sky. 2,000 images took place between 1950 and about 1956. Important note, this is before we ever send up a single satellite. There is nothing man-made in orbit around the planet until Sputnik in 1957. The sky is pristine, which means what in the world is out there? Transients were discovered in some of these images. What's a transient? It's something that's there one moment and not the next. And more importantly, in this case, the right side of the image is the blue sensitive cameras. The left side is red sensitive images. And there is a triple transient in this image that is on the red side but not the blue side. Stars should be putting out a lot of different wavelengths, not just the one side. And if you're wondering, there it is. Not on the blue side, yes, on the red side. And when we re-image the sky, this is July 1952, when we re-image the sky, we find that it's not in any of them. And moreover, not only is it not in the same things, but other observatories saw this. There was a Germany-based telescope, and they called them up and say, hey, did you see this? And they said, ja, wir haben das auch gesehen. So what are these? And remember, this is the 1950s. This is the height of UFO fever. This is Roswell. This is Area 51. This is every UFO story you've ever heard starts at this point. What the heck are these things? Well, we've been asking that question for 70 years.
All right, Beatrice. There was no alien. Flash of light you saw in the sky was not a UFO. Swamp gas from a weather balloon was trapped in a thermal pocket and refracted the light from Venus.
Those are some other examples if you want to take a look at them. And yes, the green circles are, yes, you see them, no, you don't. So, 70 years later, we're still looking for answers on this one. The most recent study that just came out was October 2025, and they said, well, we're doing a lot of nuclear testing. Maybe we ionized something in the upper atmosphere, and they flashed on there. Honestly, the Men in Black story's better. So I leave you with that little bit of a story, and you can decide for yourself what is actually going on in that, well, thank you, folks. You've been great.
Thank you so much, Steve. And again, with just a few days' notice, he's amazing, folks. So like I said, I'm so thrilled that we have such a full house tonight. And so I'm so sorry to tell you that Nerd Nite takes May off. But June is a very special Nerd Nite. We do it at Top of the Park. So it will be on Wednesday, June 17th. But if you say, no, I only go to Nerd Nite at Live, then put Thursday, July 9th on your calendar. But I hope I see you in June. As a reminder, Live does have an event like right after this. So happy to see ya. Pack up your stuff, tip your bartenders, and enjoy the rest of your evening.